A Washington Wizards insider just dropped a bombshell report regarding the Wizards and the trade deadline coming up, as there is some rumors circling around that have gotten a little bit out of hand about what he actually said is going on with the Wizards. As you can tell from the intro video and from that thumbnail, the main topic of today's video is Zion Williamson, as I don't want to say he's been linked to the Wizards, but it's not out of the realm of possibility he does get traded to Washington. So that's something that we got to kind of look at for the Wizards upcoming at the trade deadline. But there's some other stuff that was really interesting that Joshua Robbins of The Athletic talked about in his article that came out just a few hours ago from the time of recording this video. So it's really interesting. We got to look at it, kind of take a look at like, okay, what's going on with it? What all was said? So I'm going to break down everything that was kind of said in that article for you guys today, but specifically looking at Zion Williamson and the odds he actually gets traded to the Washington Wizards, as I have some thoughts about that of my own. Before we get into all that though, quick word from the sponsor of today's video, Kalshi. Kalshi is an app where you can trade on real life events such as news, politics, and even sports. You can go on Kalshi and trade on game results, player props such as points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made. You could trade on how many points are going to be scored in a total, game for the NBA. And so that's some interesting stuff that you can do at Kalshi. One example, NFL playoffs are right here. All right. I'm not a big NFL guy. I try to keep up. That might be because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and so I naturally don't want to keep up with the NFL, especially in the playoffs, because the Cowboys never do anything in the playoffs. But as you can see here, 40% of people are trading on the Seattle Seahawks to win the National Football Championship, to win the Super Bowl. 26% of people are trading for the New England Patriots to win. If I was trading on it, I would trade for the New England Patriots. Drake May, he's a stud. He's that dude. So go ahead, use Kalshi today to trade on real life events such as sports. You can use our code at Digest NBA, DIGEST NBA for $20 on your first $100 deposited to trade on real life events. Thank you to Kalshi for sponsoring today's video and the rest of our videos at Digest Media. With that out of the way, let's go ahead get into talking about the topic itself. So what really sparked the Zion stuff was a specific tweet from Wizards Muse, and I love Wizards Muse. He does some funny stuff over there. He's constantly propping up AJ Johnson, which I love AJ Johnson. I'm extremely high on him. I still think he can be a solid role player in the NBA, but he talked about something, and it was this right here. Report the Wizards can make a trade for Zion Williamson via Joshua B. Robbins. Trading OKC's 2026 pick may be enough for the Wizards to acquire Zion. Zion is averaging 22.5 points per game, but has played just 158 out of 400 possible games in the last 5 years. Thoughts? So, first off, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think this was kind of taken out of context. First off, he didn't say that for sure a trade was happening or that they've had extensive talks or anything. Just, people saw couldn't make a trade for Zion Williamson. It gets a lot of appeal. All right. And they could. They had the assets to make the trade, but are the odds that they actually make the trade going to happen? I don't know. I would put it at slim. I put him at slim chances. But here was what was actually said by Joshua Robbins in his article. The sources said the Wizards remain open to absorbing other teams' multi-year contracts if potential trade partners attach sweeteners such as future draft picks or intriguing young players. That is the most likely trade deadline scenario for Washington, league sources said. As one league source says, the Wizards could be a salary dumping ground for assets. The notion of Washington taking on a long-term money is not a major revelation since Michael Winger joined the organization as monumental basketball president. And Winger hired Will Dawkins as the Wizards general manager. Winger and Dawkins have prioritized adding future draft picks and trade and young prospects. So as you can see right there, the priority of going into this deadline and what has always been the priority has been getting future draft picks and young players that other teams don't want. Some notable young players out there on the market that could be looking for a solid role player to back them up are teams like Minnesota, maybe even the Oklahoma City Thunder with the injuries that they're dealing with Jalen Williams not being out and their entire center depth always being injured. It feels like always one of those guys injured. those two teams could be interested in a guy like Marvin Bagley, and they have some young players that they have kind of given up on and they don't want to kind of develop anymore because they're like, what's the point? They're never going to get time. Their contract's about to be up. They're about to be a restricted free agent. So it serves as a perfect opportunity to go get a guy like Rob Dillingham or Ousmane Dieng, along with a first or second round pick or two in these kinds of deals. So the Wizards can do that. They can get a young player and some sort of draft capital in return for trading for some of these young guys that other teams are probably done with and they want to give up on. More about the article right here, where he actually talks about some contracts that have been linked about being traded away, but not necessarily towards the Wizards. Examples of undesirable multi-year contracts thought to be in play by their respective teams include the contracts of Portland's Jeremy Grant and Toronto's Emmanuel Quickley. Grant, a 31-year-old forward and arguably one of the league's most overpaid players, is earning $32 million this season, is due $34.2 million next season, and holds a $36.4 million player option for 2027-2028. Quickley, a 26-year-old guard and a much better all-around player than Grant, could be available because he's due to earn $32.5 million annually through the end of the 2028-2029 season, a significant long-term salary commitment. So, first off, odds Wizards trade for Emmanuel Quickley, I'm putting at 0.0000001% that they make that trade. Because like it was mentioned, Emmanuel Quickley's making a ton of money. There's really no reason for them to go after him whatsoever getting Tre Young now. So it's like, man, it doesn't make sense. And the timeline doesn't add up either because in his last year of his contract, that's going to be the year Alex Sarr is going to have an extension. Keyshawn George is going to have an extension. So if you keep him, you might not be able to give one of those guys the contract extension that they like, and you have to say bye to one of them if you can't trade away Emmanuel Quickley. And his trade value, I don't think is very high right now from what I've heard. It's not high, so Emmanuel Quickley is probably off the table. Jeremy Grant is an interesting idea as he has that player option where it kind of works out where that's the last year of his deal, and it's last year the rookie deals for Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, and Bub Carrington. So it works out if he picks up the player option. It's not like he's a horrible player, but he's not good. He's just mediocre, if that makes sense, which makes him overpaid. Where really he's only a $10 to $15 million player per year. But something else that Joshua Robbins mentioned in that article was the fact that those teams specifically want win-now players in return. So that takes the Wizards off the list as the only player that they'd be able to trade in those situations is Chris Middleton. Now, the final part of his article that talks about Zion Williamson, the reason you guys are here watching this video, league sources said they cannot envision any scenario in which Washington would give up one of its own future first-round picks, but one source speculated that a pick owed to the Wizards, such as the least favorable of the Houston Rockets top four protected LA Clippers and Oklahoma City Thunder's 2026 first-round picks, might satisfy the Pelicans' goals. To be crystal clear, right here, this is what you guys need to understand right here. The Wizards trading for Williamson appears to be an extreme long shot, but is mentioned as a possibility by enough league sources that it should at least be mentioned here. So like it was said, extreme long shot, that trade actually happened. So let's be upfront about it. Let's, be like, okay, this is what's going on. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but league sources have been like, look, the Wizards have the assets to trade for Zion. It could be a team interested in trading for him for, getting these guys that have low value and turning them around and flipping them and, increasing their value. Maybe that's what they're doing for Tre Young. They bought low on Tre Young. It could go down as one of the better deals, if not the best deal during the 2025-2026 season that was done before the trade deadline. So it'll be interesting to see. But Zion Williamson, it's not like he's bad. We've talked about him at the channel, but before trading for Tre Young, I would have been like, yes, go get Zion Williamson, 100%. After trading for him, I'm kind of like, I don't know yet. It's for multiple reasons. A, the contract. As you can see here, he's making a hefty amount of money. It does line up, though, where the last year of his deal is the last year where Sarr and all these guys are on their rookie, deals. So it, it lines up with that, which helps out a ton. All right, when you look at the money right there, it's just is he going to start realistically? Will he start? How many games is he actually going to play? Wizards are probably going to have a top 3 pick, hopefully, in this upcoming draft. They take Cameron Boozer and Darren Peterson. You're starting one of them. You're not going to have Zion start over them. You'll have one of them start, and then Zion goes to the bench. You're also not going to have him start over Keyshawn George, who's been really good as well. So I just don't see a world where he starts. And then this is the only trade package that I think kind of works. You can pause, look at it a little bit, but it's Chris Middleton, Malachi Branham, 2 second-round picks for Zion Williamson. You're not giving up a ton in return. It's just kind of compromise thing going on. But I just don't see the chance of trading for Zion Williamson to be high whatsoever. But that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys personally think in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.